Donna Dubé. I love talking about CEOs and trying to help them, of small businesses. That's exactly what Donna does. She's got these great tools that she's created. One called the Power Hour, the CEO Power Hour, where the CEO should take at least an hour a week to do certain things every week at the same time. She talks about time blocking. I'm sure you've heard about time blocking. She has something called the Schedule Ninja, where certain things need to be blocked by the CEOs. When I talk to CEOs a lot in the tech field and small to medium businesses, delegation is a huge issue. They're ordering the pizza themselves, the CEO, instead of delegating. We talk about that. She's just so knowledgeable and has so many tools. She's got a podcast as well that she just talks straight up about a particular subject, all helping CEOs. A lot of great quotes. One from Warren Buffett: if you can't read the scoreboard, you don't know the score. If you don't know the score, you can't tell the winners from losers. Great quote. But just a lot of great tips and tools for CEOs to help them prioritize and to, strengthen their skills. A lot of times CEOs just want to focus on whatever they're doing, whatever their services, technology, whatever they're delivering, where they have to be more rounded and they have to be able to do other things or at least delegate those off. Really great conversation. Talk with Donna. Really enjoyed it. Thanks for listening. Hi, I'm Joey Pinz. People ask me, how did I lose 130 pounds? The quick answer is always discipline. I started my business, wasn't paying attention to my health, was eating too much, drinking too much sweets. My daughter was born. Next thing I know, I'm pre-diabetic, I have hypertension. I knew something had to change. Discipline. I, like many of you, have faced many challenges in your career, in your family, in your life, in your faith. How did you attack them? How did you approach them? How did you solve them, hopefully? It all had to have some degree of discipline. I'm also asked, how did you found and start a tech business that lasted over 25 years? Discipline. I was committed to it, enjoyed technology, didn't enjoy some aspects of it, but knew it was necessary. Discipline. Our podcast mission: how do we use discipline to better ourselves and society? Join me, please, as I talk to interesting people and discuss how they use discipline in their family, in their passion, in their careers, and how it helped them. Our podcast vision: growth through learning from others. Joey Pinz Disciple Conversations. It'll be light and serious. Join us, please. Thank you for consideration. Excited, Whitney Prude. Thank you so much for your time today. Very excited to talk to you. So, talk to me about the impact of mental health on physical well-being.
Oh boy, we're diving right in.
Yes.
The impact of mental health on physical well-being. Well, I mean, it depends on how in depth you want to go on this. I'll just start from surface level, and you decide how much we dive in. But the reality is that the majority of people don't realize how significantly their mental state is impacting their physical health. And I like to usually tell people is like our physical health is an outer expression of an inner conflict. So
Mm.
every single decision we make, every action that we take every single day is driven mentally and emotionally. It's all coming from inside of us. And those decisions drive our health. It's like how we're taking care of ourselves, what food are we putting in our mouth, how much sleep are we getting, how well are we taking care of ourselves, all of those things, right? So all of these decisions based on the mental and emotional aspects that we're making every single day is driving the outcomes of our physical health. But when we go to improve our physical health, we never think about the mental aspect. We go to food, diets, and exercise. That's it.
So how does one take care of the mental condition?
Yeah. A big thing is starting with awareness,
Mm.
right? Because a lot of times, like if we're not even aware that there are things inside of us that are impacting us,
Mm.
then a lot of times we don't realize and we don't know how to change. we don't know how to start, we don't know how to start changing aspects of our physical health, changing our habits, those types of things, because we don't even realize what's driving them. It could be things that are coming all the way from our past. It could be, maybe we grew up in a home where our emotional needs weren't met. And so we tried to compensate by impressing people or overachieving or always being a people pleaser so that we could feel
Mm.
good enough. We could feel like we're worth something. Well, now as an adult, we continue that behavior because we still want to feel like we're worth something. So we meet everyone else's expectations. We do whatever we have to be loved, to feel loved,
Mm.
because that need is just not being met. And so we always put ourselves on the back burner. So again, our physical health, taking care of ourselves, eating well, exercising, getting sleep, all of these things start to go on the back burner because we're taking care of everyone else, we're pleasing everyone else, we're overachieving in our job, all of those things, and we get put way on the back burner. And it can go all the way back to your childhood simply because we just didn't feel like we were loved or that we were getting our needs met. And we have no idea, right? There's millions
Right.
of things that could contribute, but
I mean, I know friends that just work better when there's stress in their life. I don't know how they operate like that, Whitney. I don't get it, but it's just they just they just I don't know if they're just conditioned to it or something, but it's very I'm just the complete opposite. I some people are just different, obviously.
yeah.
Overstatement.
Yeah.
Stress but stress is can cause so many ills in our physical mental well-being.
Yeah. And there are different personalities, right? There are different
Yes.
types of people, and some people can handle more, it's like they might thrive on the excitement of things in certain
Mm, mm,
situations. So some people, if you take like an extrovert and you take an introvert and you put them into the same situation, right, it's going to have completely different impacts on them. So I think there's truth to the fact that like some people can actually thrive in what to me would look like an incredibly stressful situation,
mm,
but they're just actually thriving in that situation. It might not actually cause as much stress to them as it might to someone else
mm.
who doesn't deal with it as well. But from a general sense, no, stress is not healthy, especially not
Oh,
chronic stress.
fascinating background, Whitney. You went to you became a pharmacist, you went to pharmacy school. I love your reasoning because you didn't wanna touch people or didn't touch their icky parts or
I didn't want to touch anyone's nasty anything. Yeah.
nasty. Yeah. Yeah, but, a lot of stress, you graduated, lots of loans, you're at the Mayo Clinic, about 9 months in, something kinda tragic not kind of, something tragic happens.
Yeah. Yeah, so 9 months into my job, I felt like I had kinda made it.
Yeah.
Like, if we go back to kind of that time period, initially I was 16, my parents went through a divorce, right? That was the first initial stress, but anyone that's been through a divorce or any type of those family issues, they know that it doesn't just end when like a divorce is finalized, right? Your family
Mm,
is broken in many ways, and relationships are damaged in many ways. And for me, I mean, I struggled. I struggled big time. And I thought for many, many years, I thought I had it all together. Like I thought that I had just kind of risen above, that I was doing fine, I was dealing with it fine. Everything was fine,
mm,
right? And when I got into pharmacy school, because pharmacy school was so busy and so stressful, it pushed me beyond my limits. I could handle quite a lot of stress, but like pharmacy school was just unreal. It's
wow.
like humans shouldn't have to go through stuff like that, but it just pushed me beyond my limits to be able to cover up what I was covering up. And so I mean I finally broke. I finally realized that there were so many things below the surface that were not okay. whether that's the broken relationships in my family, the loneliness, abandoning myself, feeling abandoned from other, relationships in my life, a lot of different things, and
Mm.
developing a lot of unhealthy relationships just to cope with life. So I spent probably 7 years trying to work through those mental and emotional challenges, going to therapy, reading self help books, searching on the internet, everything that I possibly could to just just kind of like increase my awareness, figure out like, why am I doing what I'm doing? Why are certain things affecting me in certain ways? How do I get myself to a healthy place? And I felt like when I did get my job at the Mayo Clinic and I was working as a pharmacist, I had worked on myself for so long that once I got to that point, I felt like I had finally made it.
Mm.
Like I had finished pharmacy, I had gotten this job, I had reached my dream. I had worked through all of these mental and emotional things, and it was like, it was like this crowning moment in my life. And 9 months in, that's when everything kind of started to fall apart for me. So I started to get a wrist injury using the computer, and I was like, hey, you know what? Let it rest. 2 weeks,
Sure.
I'll be fine, back to normal. And that wasn't the case. Within about 2 months, I was pretty much bedridden. I was so sick, fatigued, weak. I was in a ton of pain. Ended up being autoimmune. So some confusing sort of mix between rheumatoid arthritis and lupus, and the reality is that, yeah, I had $200,000 of debt hanging over my head. I couldn't really, it was like I was scared that I wasn't going to be able to do my job as a pharmacist anymore, and I'm like, what the crap do you do now? I it's like, how do you get out from under that loan without a pharmacist salary? Rocked my world.
Yeah, it rocked your world,
It did.
but you were able to turn it around. You help people now.
I do. I do. And I mean, so it's kind of it's been an interesting journey, and for whatever reason, I feel like I was blessed with, from a mental and emotional standpoint. I've never, even when I've been really really discouraged or really struggling, I've never lost hope. Like, I've
Mm.
never gone into a really deep, like, depressive state where I just couldn't see a way out.
Mm.
And I know that people get there and that it's incredibly challenging. And I am very, very grateful that for whatever reason, that's not where my brain goes. Right. So I just, in this situation and the things that I've been through in my life, I just never lost hope. And it's always like there's always a way out in my mind. For whatever reason, I just there's always a way out, right? And you can always find it if you work hard enough for it. So there was kind of a turning point for me where I was in bed. I would spend pretty much all day just laying in bed. I didn't have energy to do anything. I couldn't even hardly shower. I just, like, literally was in bed. And I started looking for it was kind of interesting. I started looking for celebrities because I knew there were some celebrities who struggled with, like, autoimmune diseases or whatever. And I was like, how do they do it? Like, I'm just curious, because those are like stories that are out there, right? You can learn about their story, their life, what they're dealing with, a little bit more than just the average individual. And so I started searching, and I came across Lady Gaga, and I just started, reading into it, learning a lot more about her situation. And there was one quote that really hit me. And so she's got a lot of chronic pain. She's been through a ton, but there was a quote where she said, "My pain really does me no good unless I can transform it into something that is."
Mm.
And at that point, I was like, I mean, I have to find a way, right? Like, you can either be miserable in bed your whole life, or you can find a way to make the life that you have fulfilling.
Mm.
Whether that's helping me and my family to be able to have a decent life despite my limitations, or whether that's helping other people to make sure they don't have to end up where I ended up. Do the things ahead of time with your health and with your mental health and physical health, so that you don't have to, ask that question of, like, what if I had
Mm.
actually lived my life differently back then?
Mm.
Would my life be different now? Would I be riding a scooter everywhere that I go? Would I be, um, Yeah, it probably would be different.
Mhm.
But I can't go back, and so yeah, so for whatever reason, that hope inside of me, it just kept me going, and one day after the next, I just started building a program. I started building everything together, everything I had ever studied in terms of health, my experiences of going through therapy, of all of the self-help books, and then becoming certified as a coach, and all the coaching psychology. And I took it all and I put it into a 4-month transformation program. And it just fell out of me. I look at it now and I'm like, how in the world, how in the world did that work out like it did? But yeah, it just one day after another, it eventually just fell out of me, and here we are.
Mm. Going back to discovering your ailment, you do mention that some of your family members had it, that got around the same time. You're not sure if it was stress induced, but it certainly didn't help it.
Yeah, and that's a I'll never know the answer to that, of
Right.
whether like I would have ended up with it no matter what,
Mm.
or if my stress caused it to happen, you know? And maybe it's a mix of both. But from a genetic standpoint, yeah, it's like my grandma has lupus and RA, a weird mix. My aunt has lupus, my cousin has psoriatic arthritis. Like, it's definitely
Mm.
a genetic thing, and potentially I was predisposed, and it was going to happen anyways. But I definitely, there were a lot of things with like the stress that just really, I mean, it's hard to deny that the stress didn't have some sort of impact, because I could tell, it's like I could tell it was weighing on my body. I was in pain a lot. There was a lot of things where it's like, yeah, I'm leading myself to my own fate, essentially.
Mm. Mm.
Yeah.
So, as a pharmacist, let's talk just briefly about just these. There's these weight loss medications. There's one that's been out for a while, and it's got critical results. There's one that I hear that they're going to announce in a couple years, but you could still buy it somehow in the dark web or so. I saw on the over the weekend in the Wall Street Journal. Talk to me about your viewpoint on those.
It's interesting. A lot of people, you would think that as a pharmacist, I would be like gung ho about a
Right.
medication, and I'm 100% not.
Mm.
It is not a sustainable solution. These medications, basically, I mean, essentially what they're doing is they're making it so that, you're suppressing your appetite
You're
and
not
you're
hungry.
slowing your digestion. So
Yeah.
you're basically making it so that you're not hungry and you don't feel like eating as much food. Um, and that is only the case. Those things are only in place as long as you continue to take that medication. Once that goes away, um, you're back to where you were. And sometimes the cravings after you get off of the medication are actually even worse than when you
Wow.
were before you were on the medication. And so then, I mean, you gain the weight back. So what's the use? I mean, in my opinion, it's stupid. It's a
Mm.
waste of money. It's not a long-term solution. It just doesn't make sense. The only people that I feel like it could make sense for is people who are legitimately diabetic. If they're going on that medication and they're using it as a diabetic medication, and it's also supplementing and helping them with weight loss, but they're going to be on it long term, it's like a lifelong med type of a thing. Okay, like that
Mm.
can be justified in that situation. But for other people, it's not the miracle that people think it is.
Mm. And you're certainly hearing that, by the way, with the results. It's kind of hot for a while. How about supplements, Whitney?
Yeah, supplements, I'm also not a huge fan. Also interesting perspective, as a pharmacist. A lot of, I mean, from a pharmacist perspective, and you'll probably get this from the majority of pharmacists, not all pharmacists, but the majority of pharmacists. In terms of supplements, I mean, the medical field is very research based, right? And our licenses depend on us, is like the recommendations that we make, that like we're confident in what we're recommending, and that we're not doing any harm to anyone. And so when it comes to supplements, there's no one regulating them. There's no
Mm.
way to actually know, like, what's in the product that you're taking. And it's interesting. This is just a personal example that I had recently. So I mean, within rheumatology, my vitamin D was low, and my rheumatologist said, "Okay, let's get you on a vitamin D supplement." So I said, "Okay." 3 years ago, I started a daily vitamin D supplement. Well, they just decided to retest my vitamin D just a couple months ago, and my levels were astronomically high, which
Hmm.
significantly would increase my risk for like getting kidney stones and that type of thing.
Wow.
So a lot of people think that just like taking a supplement is benign, but it's really not.
Interesting.
And so it's not like, I never recommend for people to just take supplements just because.
Hmm.
Eat healthy foods to get the nutrients that your body needs, and you'll get enough unless you have some sort of specific deficiency. Then you can use supplements to treat a deficiency if you need to. But if
Hmm.
you're eating a really healthy, like a whole foods diet and taking care of yourself, you don't need supplements.
How about quercetin? That
Quercetin,
could-
I'm not very familiar with.
Yeah. Do you ever listen to Andrew Huberman?
I don't, no.
Ah, well, he's a big. Oh my goodness! Like he's a clinical. What is his actual title? He's out of Stanford, but he's got a great podcast. But
Okay.
fish oil. None of these things do it for you.
I would say no. I mean fish oil, so fish oil is, I mean, it's healthy, right? It's healthy fats, and there's value to having healthy fats in your diet,
Hmm.
absolutely. But I mean, the reality is that our bodies are designed to function in a certain way. They're designed to, you know, have a certain amount of nutrients that come from all of the different food groups that it's like we have this nutrition education, and we've had it for decades. And the reason that we've had it for decades is because it's how humans are stay healthy, right? It's like
Mm, mm,
we'll never know everything, but we know enough to know how to keep a human body healthy. We do know that much. And so it's just, it's like if you have medical conditions or if you have deficiencies or things like that, yeah. I mean, if you take fish oil, is it going to hurt you? Probably not. Is it going to have a huge benefit that you're going to actually notice something? Probably not.
mm.
It's just, it's not that significant.
I noticed that I swim better after. No, that's a little joke.
Nah.
So you have this great video about being a caffeine drinker.
Oh, not being a caffeine drinker. Yeah, yeah. So, and this is my opinion,
Yes.
right? This is not fact. This is not research based. This is my opinion. And I don't, when my clients come into my program, if they want to drink caffeine, that's fine. The time that I start to care about their caffeine intake is if it's impacting their sleep.
Mm,
If you're disturbing your sleep, you can't sleep because you're drinking a lot of caffeine, or you're just not getting great sleep at night, then I care about the caffeine that you're drinking, because your sleep is really, really important for your health. But that being said, my take on caffeine, and the reason, when I was in pharmacy school, and this is kind of funny, but when I was in pharmacy school and I'm like, exhausted beyond belief, and it's just taking so much time, so much effort, and it's just like, tough to just get through another day. I remember my mom saying, "Well, it's like you probably are going to have to start drinking caffeine just to get through." And for me, the thought in the back of my mind was, what caffeine does is it essentially covers up what our body is telling us
mm,
and allows us to push even harder. So in pharmacy school, where I'm already dying, right? Do I put caffeine on board and then
mm,
push myself even harder? Yeah, I mean, clearly I already pushed myself potentially to a chronic illness, you know? And so that's kind of my take on caffeine, is like, I've had people ask me, "Well, what do I do about like being tired all through the afternoon and I can barely get through my shift? Like, is there a stimulant or like something that I can take? What do you recommend?" And I'm like, "I recommend a good night's sleep, and
mm.
to get the food and the energy that your body needs." If you're really taking care of your body, you shouldn't need caffeine. You shouldn't
Mm,
have to have caffeine to get up in the morning. If you're consistently getting a really good night's sleep and you're getting all of the nutrients that you need in a day and you're exercising, you're taking care of yourself, you shouldn't need it.
mm. You don't drink any coffee?
I don't. Mm-mm. I
Have
mean,
you
I don't
ever?
like the taste. I don't like
Ah,
the taste. I've tried coffee and it is not for me.
yeah.
I don't even like the smell of it. But no, I've never really been a caffeine drinker. Even, I mean, there's nothing it's like drinking soda that has caffeine in it or whatever. Like I don't know, I've just never really had the desire. It's not that I've never drank a Pepsi or something, it was like still my grandma's Pepsi and drink out of her glass, whatever, but I've just never really been a caffeine drinker.
Yeah, I never had a cup my whole life, but I did used to, drink a lot of soda. I haven't for about 20 years, so I
Good
was
for
getting caffeine for a while, yeah.
you. Yeah,
Um, balance is not something you find, it's something you create.
100%.
This is on your Instagram.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a lot of times I think that we we become the victim of circumstances that we create, I
Mm,
think. You know, a lot of people believe
mm,
that they don't have time and that they can't have time, that there literally is no more time in a day. And it's 100% not true. I agree that people can be busy.
mm,
That's true. I agree that, potentially you can't fit more in because there's not more time, but if something is valuable enough to you, if it's enough of a priority in your life, you will make time for it. And that's a lot of what we do in my program of, people will come in and they'll be so incredibly busy, but a lot of times we're busy doing things that we don't realize are taking up our time. We might be scrolling for an hour on Instagram. Well, you could have done a lot of other things with that
mm,
hour in your day. Or we might keep ourselves busy. A lot of people are busy just because they don't know how to be calm, right?
mm,
So their mind is constantly busy. So even if they did have downtime, they find something else to keep them busy. So they literally feel like there is no downtime in a day. You can find downtime in your day. So I always, I try to help people to find, list out their priorities, list out your values, list out your priorities, and are you living your life in line with your values and your priorities?
mm,
The majority of people would list out their values and priorities, and then if we looked at their schedule, we'd be like, "Are you sure?"
mm,
You know, because usually it's not balanced that way. And so so it does, it takes work. You create the balance. We're not a victim of this situation. It's our life and we get to choose how we live it and what we put in a day.
mm.
We're in control of that.
A big advocate of balance. Albert Einstein quote you put up on Instagram: "Life is like riding a bicycle. To keep your balance, you must keep moving."
Yeah, you got to keep working on it, but you're always in control if you want to be,
Mm,
or you're also in control of letting yourself be out of control.
mm. Yeah, you're a
And
victim of your
sometimes
own circumstances.
Exactly. Yeah, and sometimes we're just completely unaware that we're a victim of our own circumstances, and we have no idea how to change it.
Myth or fact? If you're not sore, you didn't work out hard enough.
Nah. I would say myth.
Me too.
Yeah, you don't have to be sore.
Yeah, this is up on your on Instagram. Was this an issue with people? Were they
Um,
asking?
not necessarily. I think, when I focus on exercise with people, my focus is on long-term success, right?
Right.
So I don't if someone comes into my program and they lose a bunch of weight and they gain it all back again, like we failed. Our program
Yeah.
failed. that's not success, right? But a lot of people think that they have to like spend hours at the gym. They have to constantly like kill themselves to be able to get results. But it's not the case. Weight loss is 80% food and 20% exercise. And if you can't exercise very much, say there's someone who's pretty immobile, it doesn't mean that they can't lose weight.
Mm,
So, like, do you have to kill yourself at the gym and do you have to be like super sore every single time you work out to get a good workout? No. Can you like do exercise? Can you do a home workout? Can you walk outside? Can you, it's like people get it stuck in like a definition of exercise. Like this is exercise. And the reality is exercise can be any number of things.
mm.
Get your body moving.
And it's so rewarding. Your body rewards you after a great workout. It's so you could just feel it. You could just
Yep.
feel it. What's your big little exercise?
Ooh, good question. This is my favorite exercise. Yeah. And this made a big difference for me. A really big difference for me when I was working through a lot of challenges in my own life. Big little exercises. This is actually something, well, I learned it in two different places. I learned it in therapy. I also learned it, there's a book called it's called The Journey from Abandonment to Healing.
Mm.
And essentially, I have everyone that goes through my program do this exercise, whether or not they have significant, like, struggles from their past or whatever. Because really, what it does is it helps us to show up for ourselves. It helps us to learn how to actually be able to meet our own needs and to be there for ourselves. But what happens is you do a visualization where you can let's say we're going into the past. So let's say I had a very challenging or traumatic experience in my past. So what I'll do is I'll go in my mind, I'll visualize, I'll take myself back to that experience and I'll just visualize, the experience and the way that it happened, the way that I remember it happening, like exactly as it happened. And then what you do is you also take your older self, big, with you back to that experience.
Oh.
And you take big, and that's your adult self that now has a lot more life experience and wisdom. And you go with yourself, your younger self, into that experience, and you actually have a dialogue. You talk with your younger self. You ask them, like, what's wrong? Like, why are you sad? What's happening? And you let your
Hmm.
younger self actually express themselves. And so your younger self gets to actually say, like, I'm really hurt or I'm scared or whatever, and this is why, like, this is what's happening. And then your older self, big, gets to come in and say, hey, I'm really sorry that you're going through this. It is really scary. Like, this is a really scary experience, but I want you to know that I'm here for you and that everything actually is going to turn out okay, and we're in this together, right? I'm not ever going to leave you
Hmm.
and I love you, right? A lot of people have a hard time actually telling themselves that they love themselves.
Mm.
I love you and I'm here for you, and give that little child a big hug. It's incredibly empowering to be able to show up for ourselves and to meet our own emotional needs. And the
Mm.
majority of the population has no idea how to do that.
So, how do you help your clients, Whitney? You take them first through kind of exercises on self discovery and then work on goals and pursue?
All of the above. Yeah, we so within the program, so I start them with nutrition from the very beginning because that's what people really want, right? I give them what they
Mm.
want, um, but I also provide what they actually need, which is the
Mm.
mental and emotional stuff. So we start them out with the nutrition because they want to lose weight. And then we start diving into the mental and emotional thing, the mental and emotional aspects, so that as they're working on the weight loss, we're also working through these things that are really keeping them stuck and getting in their way.
Mm.
So within the program, I mean, there's a couple of different sections of things that I take people through. And the very first one is incredibly important. I call the first section the power of mind. And what I love about this section is it actually educates people about how our brains really work. And I take people through like different parts of the brain, but really and truly just understanding. So, like, if we go from our brainstem, for example, our brainstem just works on autopilot. Everything is automatic. It helps us breathe, it keeps our heart pumping, it like all of those things that we're not controlling, okay, they're on autopilot, right? If we're it's like our need to survive and helping us to like just survive in general as human beings, right? All of these there are all of these automatic reactions coming from our brainstem. Our brainstem, those reactions go from our brainstem and up into the limbic system. The limbic system is where it gets tied in with emotions.
Mm.
And a lot of times the triggers or these automatic reactions go from brainstem to limbic system, and we automatically react. We automatically like do something because of it. Maybe we're super angry and we lash out, or or we get sad and immediately we go to food and we start binge eating or whatever, right? And all of this feels automatic and just how we function. But the cool part about the brain is that that's actually it's automatic, but it doesn't mean that it's outside of our control.
Mm.
So the cool thing about the human brain is that we can actually observe everything that's happening. So we can pause and we can start to actually realize, okay, so this is what's triggering. This is the emotion that's coming from it. Now it's telling me that I want food. And we get to say, wait a second, am I even hungry? Why do I want food right now?
Mm.
And then I like to get people to ask the third question of, actually, I'm not hungry at all. So what do I really need?
Mm.
Because food, I'm going to food to meet a need, but I'm not hungry.
Mm.
So what is the actual need and how can I actually meet that need? So it just
Mm.
starts people on this journey of actually understanding our brains and how they work, and really opening an entire world of self awareness that they had no freaking clue existed, and that they actually have control over a lot of things.
Yeah, I do some of my best eating when I'm not hungry. It's not good.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a real
Yeah,
thing.
absolutely. Yeah, it certainly is. And but the immediate goal is losing weight, not getting healthy, but losing weight. That's why they're coming.
That's what people want.
Right.
So like, I mean, if you think about it, if I were to advertise to people of like, "Hey, come get mentally and emotionally healthy," people are like, "Nah, I don't need that."
Right.
Right? But if I say, "Hey, come lose weight," they're like, "Oh my gosh, I need to lose 15 pounds or I need to lose 100 pounds," whatever, right? So they'll come because they want to lose weight. So I advertise what they want and then I provide what they actually need. And people, once they start talking to me and once they start working with me, they realize, oh crap, like this is actually why I've been stuck the whole time. But they don't
Yeah.
know that ahead of time. So
Right.
I have to get people based on weight loss and then really help them through
Mm.
this long-term sustainable journey,
Advertise what they want, then
and
give
then
them what
give
they
them
need.
what they need.
Yeah.
You got it.
You know, um, so I started my business back in the 90s, and Whitney, I was, working way too much. I wasn't sleeping well at all. I was working 14, 15-hour days. And, I got myself up to 340 pounds. I was drinking a lot of soda. I was eating pizza late at night. It was just kind of get it in there and keep working. And my doctor said my daughter was just born, and she said, if you don't lose this weight, you're not going to see her graduate. So it's all I needed to hear. I kind of had that, kind of come to Jesus moment. So I took the next 6 or 7 months. I lost about 130 pounds. And when people ask me how, weight loss is a huge industry. And again, you're advertising what they want, what they really need. I had to make a shift in my lifestyle. It wasn't temporary. It was a shift. I'm not going to drink any more sugary drinks. Don't need it. I'm still going to have a hamburger, but I'm not going to have four. I'm going to have one. Making these lifelong shifts. And when people ask me how I did it, of course I say I did it through discipline. That's it, people. That's how I did it. I got focused, I got disciplined, I read, I understood, and I got there. How does discipline play a role in your life, Whitney Prude?
How does discipline play a role in my life? I mean,
Yeah.
I think every single day I'm a very driven individual, and I
Mm.
always have been. And I mean, it probably manifests in the fact that when I'm laying sick in bed, it's like, how do I get out of this? You know, what little effort do I have to put in every single day so that 5 years from now I can actually get the results that I want?
Mm.
And I think, whether that's a God-given gift or, you know, it's like a personality trait, something, you know, something that I was given. But discipline to me is just what I teach my clients, which is small, consistent steps every single day. I might set big goals that are 5 years off, but I don't expect to be there within a week. I only expect to be taking the small steps that are necessary on a daily basis. So that if you add up all of those small steps over a 5 year period of time, then I eventually get what I want.
Mm.
So even though, like, yeah, you could say I'm a victim of my chronic illness, you know, I still become in control of the situation in a way that I can
Mm.
by using the abilities that I have over a given period of time within my restrictions and my limitations to still be able to get what I want.
So you see discipline as kind of, you said the word driven, and I gathered kind of goal setting.
Yeah, and just sticking to it, like realizing that every day counts.
Hmm.
You know, you've got to be consistent, keeping yourself consistent over time, doing, you know, doing what you want to do to get yourself to where you want to go.
Journey of a million miles starts with a single step.
Exactly. Exactly. And you know, if you look at the weight loss industry, the diet industry, why do people fall off after 2 weeks? Well, because they try to do everything at the same time. They try to jump
Mm.
on to a, you know, okay, I'm not exercising at all and now I'm going to go to the gym, you know, 6 days a week and I'm going to change all of my eating habits and change all of my food, and after 2 weeks it's like screw that.
Mm. Mm.
You know, I was like I'm not doing that anymore. We give up. You can't
Mm.
stick to it. It's too overwhelming. It's too much. So I don't I think I look at discipline as, you know, having a goal and being consistent with small steady growth.
Mm. The statistics of people who gain weight back after losing it are just terrible. 90%, right?
Yep.
Just terrible.
Yep.
Oh, I can do it. It's hard, but I could just do it again. So I'm going to go back to the way I was. It's just horrible.
Yep. Yeah, and that's why I push the mental and emotional piece so hard, is because, you know, it's like people will, you know, they could lose the weight and they feel like they're doing great,
Mm.
you know, but then something happens. Maybe a family member passes away, or, you know, their spouse lost their job, or something happens with a child, or anything, you know, any number of things can happen in life, or all of a sudden you get a promotion and you know, your stress demand is significantly higher. And then all of a sudden you go into the survival mode. Well, we need to know how to manage those things. We need to understand, you know, the things that are going on inside of us and be aware, right? So when we actually learn all of those skills, then it's always in our toolbox. So then once life changes, we pull out our toolbox and we say, "Okay, I know how to deal with this. I know the steps."
What motivates you, Whitney Prude?
Um Part of that question I don't know the answer to. I've always been motivated. I've always been driven to an extent. Um, the other part, it's interesting, when I talk about having a 5-year goal, and I mean, I'll share this that is, more personal to my personal life, but um, it just kind of plays into discipline and what I'm working for, right? So I got diagnosed about 7 years ago, and I told my mom a little bit into that journey, so maybe a year or two into that journey. I started working on the things that I was working on with public speaking, with my business, and I said, "Hey, mom, this is my 5-year escape plan." And what I meant by that was I didn't want to be stuck counting on disability. I didn't want to be stuck having my life and my income be dependent on someone else, and whether or not they think that my situation should, whether or not I should get it, or whether or not I can do what I say I can do or not. I didn't, so it became my 5-year escape plan. And essentially, when I haven't had kids yet, and I still wanted to have a family, and it's like, well, crap, you know what now? When does that become possible? I don't even have the energy to take care of myself, you know? My husband's doing everything around the house. He's taking care of literally everything. All I can do is lay in bed and go to work.
Mm.
So, so I set this goal of, what would it take for me to get my student loan paid off, so that if I needed to leave my pharmacist job, I could, because it was making me so exhausted, and I was constantly flaring. So it's like, if I want to have some sort of a life, I have to be able to get away from that, right? Or I'll just always be sick. So that's kind of what I was trying to escape from. But I also had to be able to get rid of $200,000 of debt.
Mm.
And then, not to mention, number one, can my body handle being pregnant or having a child? If it can, what happens afterwards? And how do we take care of that child, right? I'd probably have to be able to hire full time help. Or the alternative is, do you have a surrogate, which is anywhere from 100 to $200,000? So in my head, all of my wheels start spinning, and I start thinking 5 years ago, how do I make this possible?
Mm.
How do I make this possible? How do I, despite my limitations, instead of becoming a victim, how do I still end up with the life that I want? And right now, that is my biggest motivation.
Mm.
I want a family. I know it's going to be challenging. It's going to be incredibly expensive, but I'm determined, and I'm going to make it happen. And we're actually getting very, very close, because I've been working on my 5-year plan for almost 5 years.
For you.
And so, if I just, if you really want something, and you work hard enough to get it, and you be patient enough with yourself, right? You're still
Mm.
human, and it's within your limitations. If you do have things that are outside of your control, I believe that you can get there. And I believe that about myself 100%. And even, with my business, when there's been times where it's like, we're investing all sorts of money in my business and not getting anything out of it. And my husband's like, do we just keep like sinking money into this thing? And I'm like, stay with me, babe. Like, I'm going to make this happen, and it's happening, but so part of the answer to your question is, I don't freaking know where the motivation comes from.
Mm.
It's something I was blessed with. But there are other aspects of where I want to live my best life, and I'm willing to do the work, to be able to get it, and that
Mm.
motivates me.
How do you measure success?
Um, well, that's a hard question. How do you measure success? I mean, I think it's different for everyone what success is, um, because a lot of people will be afraid to set goals because they're afraid to fail.
Mm.
And even though I set goals, I don't ever consider myself a failure, even if I'm not there yet, right? It's like, You only fail if you stop trying. Like if you give up, then you're not going to get there, right?
Mm.
If I haven't given up yet and I'm still moving forward, I would still consider that to be success. I'm still getting results. I still believe in myself. I'm still moving forward and I'm still being successful.
Mm.
I don't think there has to be a line drawn in the sand to be considered success or failure.
And do you measure that often?
Um, it's interesting. So when I set goals, I don't really set like small goals, like
Mm.
small incremental goals, even though I encourage a lot of my clients to do that as they're on like a health journey. But like with my business, for example, just because that's, is like my big focus right now, a lot of people are like, okay, so how many, it's like, how many sales calls are you going to have this week,
Mm.
which then equates to this and equates to this and equates to this. And, and then you push yourself to that goal. And, um, for me, I know that in every given day, I'm going to give what I have to give, and I'm not going to overdo it. I don't want to set a goal that's going to push me past like my physical abilities at this point. I have to be really careful with my chronic illness. And so really like success for me is, hey, I'm going to get up every day and I'm going to put in what I have while still taking care of myself. And I
Mm.
consider that a successful day. And it's going to take me longer to get to my goals than it's going to take somebody else that doesn't have to sleep 10 hours a night and that doesn't have to, stop and,
Mm.
take a few rest days if I've pushed myself a little bit too far. So I accept that my journey is going to be very unique to me. And as
Mm.
long as I keep moving forward, that's enough for me to keep me driven. So sometimes the small goals really drive people.
Mm.
I've never really had to set the small goals. I can have a really big goal, and for whatever reason, I keep myself motivated on a daily basis.
Yes, you do. And
Nah.
yeah, I could tell by your social media. I could tell by your podcast, your energy. It's contagious, Whitney. I love what you're doing. I mean, people need. I mean, the obesity, overweight. It's just overweightness is just it's an epidemic in our country. The
It is.
politicians won't talk about it because that doesn't get them votes. So and being, it's just terrible. I mean, and unfortunately, other countries are starting to look like America as well. And we have to get healthier. Sure, if you want to get there because you want to lose weight, that's fine. But the goal should be healthiness, and perhaps it's the same thing. Um, Thank you so much for your time. I love your story. I love what you're doing. Keep up the great work. If anybody is listening, how can they get in touch with you?
Yeah, the best way to get in touch with me is definitely to visit my Instagram. So my Instagram handle is at my whole and happy life. And you can also visit my website, which is the same thing, www.mywholeandhappylife.com. And both of those ways you can get in touch with me. You can schedule a call with my team. We do free 15 to 30-minute calls with anyone who's interested in just getting on a call with us and seeing how we could help. So we always offer those calls. And we're always happy to talk to anyone that's struggling and wants to move forward with their health. Don't
My
wait.
whole Don't wait, exactly right. My whole and happy life. Interesting. After the holidays, you get more calls for these kind of temporary diet people?
So, I mean, it's very common. Like January is a big month,
Yeah,
right? Of like people and they kind of wait because they think like, okay, so we've got the holidays, October, November, December, and like it's going to cost those months are going to be more expensive. You got to buy
right.
Christmas presents, you're buying a lot of food, all of those types of things. So a lot of people actually put it off even until the new year. They're like, no, I'm going to get started in the new year. Or people be like, I don't want to be restricting my food and not be able to enjoy the holidays. So they'll also, there's a lot of reasons why
Mm.
people put it off till January. But For whatever reason, yes, January is a big month for people. But it's for our program, it's, it's not a just a quick fix where you're in for 2 weeks and you're out. It's like
Mm.
when you commit, like you're in, and we're gonna see it out and really transform your lifestyle. So
Very cool. Whitney, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. And good luck in those goals you have set. I know you're going to get there and it's all going to work out.
well, thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for a wonderful conversation and having me on here. I appreciate it.
You be well, Whitney.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you for listening and or viewing Joey Pinz Disciple Conversations. Please share this episode with one or two of your friends who you think may benefit from the episode. Our website, www.joeypins.com. There you'll find lots of resources and you could join our mailing list. Please follow us on all our social media, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Podcast information, the video version of our podcast is on YouTube. Please subscribe. Audio is on all major podcasting platforms. Please follow them. And if you like it, please consider giving 5-star rating. Would really appreciate that. Would you like to financially support the podcast? You can go to our Patreon site. Consider $5, $10, or $20 a month. There's all kind of plans that we have there. There's like a one-time payment. What is this podcast episode worth to you? $25, $50, $100, $500, $1,000, $5,000. You be the judge. You can go to our PayPal account to do that as well. Thank you again for listening or watching Joey Pinz Disciple Conversations.